Reading gospel just keeps me calm, keeps me grounded. And
is a daughter. Her kids miss her. They need her. Her mother misses her. We all miss her.
Later in the day, dozens of candles lit up and music filled the air.
for some,
Alexis wouldn't stay away from her children. Alexis wouldn't. She has never been away from her children. She has never went one day without calling me.
The security camera at the 7-Eleven on Highway 29 shows two cars pulling out together. A red Honda Accord falls in line behind a truck, headlights steady, nothing out of place. Then, at the light, the Honda pulls around and turns right. Gone. Inside that car is Alexis Ware. Her phone will send one more signal, then silence. For 4 years, investigators have called it South Carolina's most confounding disappearance. But the real mystery isn't where Alexis went. It's what happened in the 45 minutes before her phone stopped answering. But how did we get here? Welcome to Hidden Motive Crime. Welcome back. If you're new here, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Today, we explore what happened in the disappearance of Alexis Ware. This is a case many of you have been asking about since it started gaining attention again this year. A mother who vanished on a routine night, a car found with everything inside except her, and a family still waiting for one honest answer. Alexis Ware was 29 years old, a hairstylist in Greenville, South Carolina, with clients calling from multiple states and a following built one appointment at a time. She had just been approved to break her lease. She had already bought clothing racks. She was days away from opening a boutique and a salon in Atlanta, a life she had been building for herself and for her 2 children. But that same week, she told her mother something that had nothing to do with Atlanta. She said someone kept calling her. She had blocked the number. New numbers kept appearing. She wouldn't say who it was. She only said she didn't think she would live to see her 30th birthday, 2 months away.
The area
2
where the
days
car
after
was
she
found is
disappeared.
known for deer hunting
Her car was
activity,
found 70
but there was
miles
no
from
clear
where
reason
anyone
why
last saw
Alexis
her.
would have gone. The
Her
area where
phone
the
was
car was
inside.
found is
Her
known
purse
for
was
deer
inside.
hunting activity,
Her identification,
but there was no
her
clear
keys,
reason why
a bag of her
Alexis would have gone
clothes,
there.
all still
and it was
in the
the
car.
opposite direction.
The only thing missing was Alexis. Who was calling her? Why she said what she said? Neither question has ever been answered. If someone you loved told you they didn't think they'd survive the next 2 months, and wouldn't say why, would you have let them go home alone that weekend? Tell me in the comments. Let's get into what happened. Alexis Ware built her life one client at a time. She worked as a hairstylist in Greenville, South Carolina, and by 2022, she had a following that stretched beyond the city. People drove in from other states to sit in her chair. She kept an active presence online, posting her work, her styles, the version of herself she wanted the world to see. And that version was someone moving forward. That January, Alexis had just been approved to break her lease early. She was planning a move to Atlanta, where she intended to open her own boutique and salon. She had already started buying inventory. Clothing racks sat ready. She was stocking merchandise piece by piece, building something with her own hands, on her own terms. Her mother, Alberta Simpkins, later said Alexis wanted a better life, not just for herself, but for her 2 children. Those children were the center of everything. A 9-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son. Different fathers, both of whom she had been in relationships with at different points in her life. She managed the coordination between 2 households the way a lot of single mothers do. Quietly and without complaint, at least not in public. The last weekend of January, the family gathered the way they often did,
the reality
at
of her
Alberta's home in
disappearance,
Anderson,
likening it
about
to a
80
nightmare
miles from
which she
Alexis's
hopes to
place in
wake up.
Greenville.
Alexis
It
Ware
looked
was
like
a
any other
loving and
weekend.
devoted mother
Kids
to
running
her 2
around,
children.
family in and
Her
out of the
days
house.
were filled with
Nothing
laughter,
about it suggested
love,
anything
and the
was
joy
wrong.
of watching
But
her
at some
children
point
grow.
that weekend,
According to
Alexis
her brother
told her mother
Travis,
something that had
everything
nothing
she
to do
did
with
was
moving,
for her
or
children.
the boutique,
Alexis
or her
cherished
children.
every moment
She said she
spent
didn't
with
think
them,
she would live to
and her
see her
family
30th
described
birthday.
her as
my daughter Alexis has been missing since
January 30th of 22. It was just a couple of days before her disappearance that she told me that she felt like she was in danger, that a black truck was following her. She felt like she wasn't going to make it to her 30th birthday. She was getting weird phone calls, text messages. She goes,
It was 2 months away. Alberta asked her what she meant. Why would she say something like that? Alexis wouldn't explain. She didn't give a name, a reason, or a timeline. She said what she said, and then she let it go. The way people sometimes do when they've already decided not to talk about something further. It would be one of the last real conversations the two of them ever had. There was something else Alexis had mentioned in the days leading up to that weekend. She told her mother that someone had been calling her. Not once, repeatedly. She said she had blocked the number. Then a new number would call. She blocked that one too. Another would take its place. She never told her mother who it was. Alberta pushed, the way any parent would. But Alexis kept the answer to herself. Whether it was fear, or protection, or something else entirely, nobody close to her has ever been able to say for certain. Alexis also told her mother that someone had been following her. A black truck seen more than once in the weeks before she disappeared. Again, no name, no explanation. Just enough information to worry the people who loved her, and not enough to do anything about it. On the evening of Sunday, January 30th, Alexis left her mother's house in Anderson and drove back to her home in Greenville. Later that same night, she made the 40-mile drive back toward Anderson again, this time to meet up with T.J. Patterson, the father of her 2-year-old son. T.J. Patterson is not a suspect in this case. He was investigated in the early stages of the disappearance, as is standard procedure for the last known person to see a missing individual, and police have since cleared him. The reasons for that clearance have not been made fully public. What is known is this: the arrangement between him and Alexis that night was routine. He was there to take their son, along with Alexis's daughter, for a visit. It was something they had done before. Surveillance footage confirms Alexis arrived at a 7-Eleven gas station in Anderson around 7:30 that evening.
That afternoon,
She got her
Alexis
children
met up
settled
with her
into
son's
TJ's
father,
vehicle.
7-Eleven
She
off
filled her
Highway
own
29
tank.
in Anderson,
Nothing
South
about the
Carolina.
footage shows any
About 30
struggle,
minutes
any
from her home
argument,
in
any
Greenville.
indication
There,
that something
she
was
buys
about
her
to go
gas,
wrong.
And then Alexis
What the
loads their
footage does
2-year-old
show
son
is what
and her
happened
9-year-old
next,
daughter
and
in
that
his
is where the
car,
unknown
all
caller,
captured
the black
on
truck,
surveillance
and the
video,
words
not
Alexis
yet
said to her
publicly
mother
released.
about her 30th
Travis says
birthday start to
investigators let him
matter in
watch
a
it,
way
and nothing
nobody
looks
could
out
have
of the
understood at
ordinary.
the time.
Until after
Who
the
was
two
calling
drive
her?
off,
Why
Alexis
she believed
starts
what she
following her
believed.
son's father
Those
to
questions
another
were still
location,
open when she
but
pulled
then
out of that
abruptly
gas station behind T.J. Patterson's car. They remain open today. Alexis kept blocking numbers. New ones kept calling. It is worth sitting with what that actually means. Somebody was determined enough to find new ways to reach her every time she cut off the last one. That is not one wrong number. That is not a mistake. That is a pattern, repeated, over days. None of it was ever reported to police. Not the calls. Not the black truck her mother says followed Alexis in the weeks before she disappeared. There was no complaint filed, no report on record, nothing that would have given law enforcement a reason to act before January 30th. Whatever protection a formal report might have triggered, a paper trail, an officer's attention, a documented pattern investigators could point to now, never existed, because nobody filed one. That gap sits at the center of this case. Not because anyone did something wrong, but because a threat with no name attached to it is very hard to act on, even for the people who loved her most. And that is what makes the timeline so hard to reconcile. In the same week Alexis was describing calls she couldn't explain and a truck she couldn't identify, she was also stocking clothing racks for a boutique, finalizing paperwork to break her lease, and making plans for a life in Atlanta with her children. Fear and forward motion, running side by side, in the same person, in the same 7 days. What would you have done if someone you loved told you they were being followed, but wouldn't say by whom? Would you have pushed harder? Called someone yourself? Tell me in the comments, because her family has had to live with that question for over 4 years. The weekend closed out the way most family weekends do. Sunday afternoon, Alexis said goodbye to her mother and drove the 80 miles back to her home in Greenville. It was an ordinary drive. Nothing about it was documented as unusual. Later that evening, she got back in her car. She drove 40 miles, back toward Anderson, the direction she had just come from hours earlier. The plan was simple. Meet T.J. Patterson, hand off the children, then follow his car toward his mother's house, the way she reportedly told him she intended to. It was routine. She had done versions of this before. 7:30 came, the 7-Eleven parking lot, 2 cars side by side under gas station lighting. By 8:15, her phone would send its last signal. Nobody in that parking lot knew that yet. 7:30 p.m., January 30th, 2022. Alexis Ware pulls into the 7-Eleven on Highway 29 in Anderson, South Carolina. The surveillance camera captures the exchange plainly. Her 9-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son get settled into TJ Patterson's car. Alexis fills her tank. Nothing in her movements suggests hesitation, distress, or a change of plan. Both cars pull out of the lot together, Alexis's red Honda Accord falling in line behind TJ's vehicle, just as she'd told him she would. They head north on Highway 29. Then, at an intersection, the footage shows Alexis do something that breaks the pattern. She accelerates, moves around TJ's car, and turns. Within seconds, she is out of frame. TJ told police he called her afterward. She didn't answer. At approximately 8:15 that evening, Alexis's phone connects to a cell tower roughly 30 miles from the gas station. It is the last confirmed signal from her phone. After that point, there is no call, no text, no location data, nothing. Later that same night, a highway camera in Augusta, Georgia picks up a vehicle matching her Honda traveling the interstate. The same camera, or one near it, later shows a matching vehicle heading back into South Carolina. The footage exists. What it does not show, clearly enough to confirm, is who was behind the wheel. Alexis had an appointment scheduled at the Georgia Lottery office in Augusta. She never showed up for it. For 2 full days, there is nothing. No sightings, no contact, no trace. Then, on February 2nd, Alexis's red Honda Accord is found abandoned on a rural road in McCormick County, roughly 70 miles from Anderson. The car is covered in mud. It's parked in an area known locally for deer hunting, a location with no apparent connection to Alexis, in the opposite direction from where she had told TJ she was headed that night. Inside the car, her phone, her purse, her identification, her keys. A bag of her clothing, untouched. Outside the car, lying on the ground beside it, her black hair bonnet, the one she had been wearing when she left the gas station 2 days earlier. Everything she would have needed to start a new life, to disappear on her own terms, was still sitting inside that car. The only thing missing was Alexis. Once Alexis's car was found, the search became a multi-agency effort. The Anderson County Sheriff's Office brought in South Carolina's State Law Enforcement Division, known as SLED, along with air support, K-9 units, cadaver dogs, and search and rescue teams. They combed the terrain across 2 counties, McCormick, where the car was found, and Anderson, where she was last seen alive. At one point, a tip led investigators and their bloodhounds to Hickory Knob State Park. The dogs worked the area. Nothing turned up. TJ Patterson, as the last person confirmed to have seen Alexis, was investigated during this period. That is standard procedure in any disappearance. Police have since cleared him and no longer consider him a person of interest. The specific reasons behind that clearance have not been made public, but officials have been clear that he is not a suspect in this case. According to the Anderson County Sheriff's Office's own public statement, marking 1 year since Alexis disappeared, investigators said they had received hundreds of tips, and that a large portion of them turned out to be false. In their words, those tips waste resources and leave the family, in their phrase, with a helpless feeling. The Sheriff's Office asked the public for information that is concrete and factual, not speculation. Detectives said they get hundreds of false tips on this case. What do you think is the single most overlooked detail here? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes it's the small, overlooked things that break a case open. More than 4 years after Alexis Ware disappeared, there has been no arrest. No charges have been filed against anyone. This case remains unsolved. The FBI has been brought into the investigation to assist South Carolina authorities. Alexis's family has continued to push for more resources, going as far as appealing directly to the South Carolina Attorney General's office in Columbia for additional support. Lead Detective Jason Fowler has spoken publicly about where he stands on the case. He told the state newspaper, "I remain positive, and it's my hope and belief that Alexis is alive," adding that it remains his goal to locate her and return her safely to her children. A $5,000 reward through Crime Stoppers still stands for anyone with information leading to Alexis being found. The tip line, 1-888-CRIME-SC, remains active. 4 years, no answers, and a family still waiting by the phone. Alberta Simpkins has spent every year since January 30th, 2022, speaking for her daughter. She has stood in front of local news cameras. She has gone to press conferences. She has said the same thing, in different words, more times than any mother should have to. On the case's 1-year mark, she told reporters, "A year has passed and nothing has changed from the first day of disappearance. And we're just hoping for some closure, and we pray for closure. We need answers." She also said something that has stayed with the people who covered this case, that her granddaughter, Alexis's daughter, still lays down and cries for her mom. Each year, on the anniversary of Alexis's disappearance, local outlets in South Carolina return to the story. Community members continue to organize searches and share her case on social media, keeping her name in front of people who might know something.
And just putting it out there is giving me that hope.
Ware disappeared back in January in Anderson County, and even as the days pass, her family says they will never stop looking.
She is a mom, she is a daughter. Her kids miss her, they need her. Her mother misses her, we all miss her.
Later in the day, dozens of candles lit up and music filled the air.
For some reason, gospel just keeps me calm, keeps me grounded. And gives me the strength to keep pushing.
A single flame.
And haven't said it yet. So what happened in those 45 minutes? Between the moment Alexis pulled away from TJ Patterson's car at that intersection and the moment her phone sent its final signal 30 miles away, nobody outside of whatever happened in that window knows for certain. That is not a resolution. It's an honest answer to an honest question. The most important minutes of this entire case remain unaccounted for. And after 4 years, that gap has not closed. It's also worth naming something larger. Alexis Ware is a black woman who disappeared under circumstances her own family calls suspicious, and her case, like many similar cases involving black women and girls, has received a fraction of the national media attention given to comparable disappearances of white victims, a pattern researchers and journalists have documented for years and referred to as missing white woman syndrome. Whether that pattern played any role in how quickly or how broadly Alexis's case spread beyond South Carolina is something her family and advocates have raised themselves. What's certain is who she was before any of this. A mother who filled a gas tank and got her kids settled in for a visit, like she'd done many times before. A businesswoman who had already bought the clothing racks for a boutique she never got to open. A daughter who told her mother something frightening and never got the chance to explain it. Alexis Ware is still missing. Her children are still waiting. And somewhere, someone still knows what happened. If this case stayed with you, share it. Someone in your circle might see something they recognize, and that's how cases like this get solved. Not by chance, but by enough people paying attention. Here's the question I want to leave you with. If you were the last person to see someone before they vanished, what's the one question you'd want investigators to ask you? Not the one they did ask, the one you wish they had. Leave your answer in the comments. If you're new here, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Next week, we look at another case that's been sitting unresolved for far too long. Somewhere, someone knows what happened to Alexis Ware in those 45 minutes. The only question left is whether they'll ever say it out loud.